Hey y'all! I'm super excited about this video because I have another scary story for you guys. And this is actually a story that was submitted to me by one of you. I found this on the subreddit and I was so excited. I mean, a lot of you guys have submitted no sleep stories, but I feel like a lot of the no sleep stories, at least in the no sleep category, are actually just paranormal stories that you guys put under the wrong flair. And so I was scrolling through all the no sleep tags and I found this one and I am so excited to read it to you. So I'm just gonna get right into this because I have nothing to say, but this story is called Our Reality is Changing. And I'm gonna scoot you back so that I can get nice and comfy cozy while I read the story to you. Part 1. Hi. As I'm writing this, I don't know how much time we have left. If you're reading this, if anyone reads this, I suggest you say goodbye to your loved ones, make amends, tie up loose ends, or anything else you don't want to go without doing. Our reality as we know it is coming to a close, and it's closing fast. There are signs all around us, but only a few will notice. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Claire. I'm 23 years old and from Chicago. My life was going smoothly until a week ago when I started noticing the glitches, as we call them. Last Monday morning, I woke up to go to class. I'm a second-year medical student at Pritzker School of Medicine. I have a boyfriend of 2 years named Cole and a cat named Tofu. Every day I stick to the same routine. Wake up, feed Tofu, make breakfast, do a little workout, take a shower, get ready for the day, say goodbye to Cole, and then I go to class. Every single weekday, I do this exact routine, except that Monday morning, things began to change. I woke up that day to a bark, but I don't have a dog. I opened my eyes to see a golden retriever staring at me from across my bedroom. Shocked that there was a random dog in my apartment, I screamed, waking up Cole, who was sleeping next to me. "What's wrong?" he asked groggily, but still obviously concerned. "Why is there a dog in our bedroom?" I asked, pointing at the dog, still staring at it. Cole stared at me confused for a few seconds before speaking. "What do you mean, Claire? That's our dog, Butterscotch." He looked at me like I was crazy. I was taken back by this. We lived in a one-bedroom apartment in the city that only allowed one pet. I knew for a fact we never had a dog, but he sounded so sure. "Are you feeling okay?" Cole asked, even more concerned as he put his hand on my forehead. "Yeah, I'm fine, but we don't have a dog. What about Tofu?" I asked, so confused as to why he wasn't fazed about the random dog in our bedroom. "Is this some joke you and Steven are playing again?" I asked, more angry than confused this time. Steven was Cole's best friend, and they had a thing for pulling pranks. Real mature, I know. They always took such pride in coming up with a perfect plan for a prank and executing it flawlessly. "Honey, I think you should stay home today. You must be coming down with something," he responded with the same concerned look. He was a good actor, I thought. I was annoyed, but I was sure him and Steven would give up if I pretended to not be bothered. "No, I'm fine. You better feed him, though." Then got up and did my routine. As I walked out of the door, I saw the family picture we had hanging up by the door where Tofu used to be. It was the same dog in our room. I thought it was just some good Photoshop and continued on with my day. I took the same bus to school every day. I just got on like any other day and I went through my camera roll. I was trying to find this cake recipe that I had saved and wanted to bake when I got home. As I was scrolling, I kept coming across photos of the dog that was in my bedroom that morning. This confused me because they had dates on them prior to today. I didn't remember taking them. Was I going crazy? I mean, Cole was a good actor, but he couldn't have done this. I would have noticed, and there was even a video where I'm obviously talking behind the camera. I took a deep breath and closed my phone. I got off the bus at the next stop and walked home just thinking about the day's strange events. Cole had gone to work already when I got there, or so I thought. I was greeted by Butterscotch, who tackled me to the ground and licked my face. This dog was clearly excited to see me. Maybe I was its owner. I looked up at the family photo again, hoping Tofu would be there. One last hope, I guess. I had to do a double take. Cole, he was gone. My heart dropped. This was insane. I was insane. I sat there frozen until I thought to look at the lock screen on my phone. It was a photo of us. Or at least it used to be. I now sat on the ground, looking at my once photo of my boyfriend of 2 years and I, now looking at a dog I didn't have until that day. I looked for his number in my phone, but it was gone. So were his social media profiles, and all of the pictures I had of us. I sat there for a few minutes recalling the last 2 years of my life. It was a little fuzzy, but I still had my memories. I remembered when we met at a bar on my 21st birthday. I remember when he asked me on a date 2 days later after getting my number that night after saying some cheesy pickup line. I remember when he asked me to be his girlfriend after taking me to my favorite restaurant while watching the sunset. I remember moving in together and our first Christmas together. This couldn't be happening. Was this a sick joke, or was I going crazy? I remember crying on the floor for at least 15 minutes before I got up. I was broken, alone, and mostly just confused. I needed answers. I got my laptop off my counter where I'd left it the night before and did some research. Was this happening to anyone else? Was I alone? I couldn't find anything. I was about to give up when I saw a post on here from a guy named James. I don't remember his username, but his post basically said, "Is anyone experiencing the reality shift, like things they know are changing? If this is happening to you, message me, I need answers." It was posted a day prior. It had no replies and it wasn't easy to find. I immediately messaged him. I simply said, "Hi, my name is Claire and I've been experiencing these changes as well. I'm in the Chicago area." I didn't really know what else to say. I figured that got straight to the point. I put my laptop down and took a second to breathe. I realized I had more people in my life besides Cole. Maybe they had answers. Then I did what I should have done in the first place. I called my mom. It rang 3 times before she picked up. "Hello?" The familiar and comforting voice of my mother came from the phone. My mom was my best friend. She had me when she was 19 and I'm her only child. My father died when I was 3 months old and she raised me by herself. "Mom, I'm in trouble. That was all I could choke out before breaking down into a sob. The reality was hitting me. "Claire, honey, what's wrong?" My mother said in her sweet voice, clearly concerned. I was relieved though. She knew who I was. Most importantly, she was still there. "Mom, Cole is gone and so is Tofu and everything is wrong." "Who?" She cut me off. "Cole, my boyfriend," I said, and then I paused. I knew it wasn't a prank. My mom couldn't keep a secret to save her life. It fell silent. I hung up on her. I knew that conversation would only end up with my mom concerned for me, and I didn't want to put that on her. I was on my own. I texted her telling her it was a prank and I was sorry. I put my phone down. I was so drained. I curled up in a ball and just cried. I didn't know what was happening. I really thought I was going insane. And just when I lost all hope, I heard the familiar ding on my laptop. I got a reply from James. All the message said was an address and a time. 4565 12th Ave, 7:30 p.m. tomorrow. Explain when you get here. Honestly, it was pretty sketchy, and if I wasn't desperate, I probably wouldn't have gone. I thought this James guy probably lived in Chicago too. Maybe it was only happening here, I thought. I googled the address. It was a tiny old-fashioned diner outside of the city that was an hour bus ride. I didn't sleep much that night. I just kept thinking that maybe I was going crazy. I spent most of the night looking for old pictures, but I found none with Cole or Tofu. Somehow I fell asleep at like 9 in the morning and woke up around 5:30. I decided to go ahead and go scope out the place. There was some traffic, so I ended up getting there around 6:50. I got off the bus and made my way inside. The diner was almost empty. There were 2 elderly men with their food sitting at a table on the left, a younger woman sitting by herself at the counter, and a man behind the counter. The middle-aged man from behind the counter gave me a friendly smile before telling me to sit wherever I would like. I chose the booth closest to the exit in case anything happened where I needed to leave in a hurry. Then I waited. I played on my phone until around 7:32 when I heard the bell of the door ring. I turned around to see a tall and slim guy who looked to be in his mid-20s. He was wearing jeans, a flannel, and wore a baseball cap. He looked around before he made eye contact with me. "Claire?" he asked. His voice was shaky. He seemed nervous. "Yeah, that's me. You must be James." I looked at him, then looked at the seat across from me, inviting him to sit. He sat down and made eye contact with me before looking out the large window beside us. "So you're experiencing the glitches too?" he asked, still looking out the window. "Glitches?" I asked before following up with, yeah, things are changing. My canon boyfriend I know I've had for 2 years apparently never existed." James looked back at me and nodded. "Yeah, I started noticing the glitches 2 days ago," he said before the man behind the counter came and took our order. From anyone else in the diner, it probably looked like we were on an awkward Tinder date. After the waiter left, we continued talking. "Do you know why this is happening?" I asked, desperate for answers. "Not yet," he replied, "but I do have a lead. I need your help, though." I didn't know if I could trust him, but I needed answers. What kind of lead? I asked. I did some research, and apparently in the 90s there was this scientist who burnt down a college here in Chicago, killing 23 people, and when he testified, he said he was trying to fix his mistake. His mistake, when asked, was summoning something that changes life as we know it. People didn't believe him, and now he's in a mental institution, James replied. He was kind of whispering. How do you know that he was telling the truth, or that he meant glitches and not something else? I asked before our food came. I don't, which is why I want to go visit him, James said, looking at me dead in the eye. I nodded. Okay, I'll go. It's the only lead we have. It was the only option. I couldn't live knowing that something so familiar in my life could suddenly change. We ate, then said goodbye, and made plans to go visit the scientist. I later came to know as Dr. Blackwell the following day. When I returned home, I put my key in my doorknob and tried to turn it, but it didn't work. I said a few curse words and feared the worst. I looked at the number on the key. What used to be a 25 was now a 23. So I went down 2 apartments and tried again. To my relief and horror, it worked. I knew I lived in apartment 25. It happened again. This was probably the most minor glitch, but I figured it's still noteworthy. So I walked into my apartment and was greeted by butterscotch. Honestly, I was kind of relieved. I wasn't completely alone. So there I stood in the apartment that was an almost replica of my apartment I had known for a year and a half, confused and broken. I had a bad plan with a guy I just met and a whole lot of questions. Part 2. So I woke up the next morning in my room and everything seemed the same as the night prior. I had gotten James's phone number the night before and he texted me the address of the mental institution that Dr. Blackwell was a patient in, as well as a time. I had a few hours to kill, so I got up and began a routine. I fed Butterscotch, who, to my surprise, was still in my apartment when I woke up. I ate, did some research on Dr. Blackwell, and it turns out he did quite a few studies on alternate realities. I then came across the full story of what happened during the fire he started. There were 23 people who died that night in a library of a local university. I continued looking for a complete list of names, but nothing came up. If only I knew then what I do now. I showed up to the institution about 10 minutes before I was supposed to meet James, but he was already standing outside waiting for me. He noticed me coming towards him and he gave me a little wave. "Are you ready for this?" he asked, looking at me. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied. I'm going to summarize this next part because if I didn't, this would be much longer. And as I stated when I started, I don't know how much time we have left. We got into the building and waited an hour before we were allowed to visit Dr. Blackwell. He wouldn't talk at first, but as soon as we mentioned reality changing, he went pale and asked how long it's been since the fire. We told him it's been 23 years. I found that out during research, happened a few months after I was born. He paused and thought for a minute. He looked genuinely terrified. "It didn't work," he kept saying over and over again under his breath. When we asked him what didn't work, we finally got some answers. He started from the beginning with him in his lab. He said in his studying of alternate realities, he discovered that ancient carving about a creature who would change reality. It took him years to decipher, but eventually he did. He came to call it a reality bender. Despite this warning in the carving, he was fascinated by it, which led him to summon it, as he stated, which he said was quite simple, just a few phrases and 23 animal sacrifices, much simpler than killing it. When he summoned the reality bender, he realized how dangerous it was. It wanted to change reality to have a mindless army. This would have worked because no one notices these changes, and humanity would come to a point where they had no one and nothing they loved to fight for. That is, until the fire. The carvings did say how to kill it, but Dr. Blackwell tried to avoid it because he took the sacrifice of 23 human lives. Dr. Blackwell gave in and knew he had to fix his mistake. He invited 22 people to the library to learn from him at a seminar, then he set it on fire. He planned to be the 23rd sacrifice, but he survived. He was locked up and no one believed his story, but then he didn't notice anything changing. He said he assumed the 22 lives were enough. He was wrong, obviously. It just held it back for a few years. I still had so many questions, and we didn't have much visiting time left with Dr. Blackwell, so I narrowed it down to 2 more questions. First, how do I kill it? I knew the answer, but I needed to hear it out loud, and to my horror, I was correct. I had to sacrifice 23 more people. My second question was, why did James and I notice the changes, which I'm sure you're probably curious about as well. After I asked that, I noticed James looking away after making eye contact with us the entire time, and he shifted in his seat. Do you know something I don't? I asked James. I was curious and honestly angry if he was hiding something. He began to explain. I experienced a glitch the night we met. He cleared his voice and looked like he was about to cry. Well, my mother was a professor at the university, and she was there the night of the fire. She was invited there by him, he said coldly while looking at Dr. Blackwell. I finally noticed the hatred in his eyes towards Dr. Blackwell. Well, she died that night in the fire. I was 5 when it happened. After you left, I got a text. It was from my mother. She was alive. She said she needed to see me and explain. This morning I met with her. She remembered everything, and somehow she knew I would remember. She proceeded to tell me about how she had been alive for the last 23 years in this new reality, but remembered that she died. She knew that the reality bender brought her back to taunt us. She explained everything to me. Instead of moving on or going to the afterlife or whatever usually happens when you die, she was stuck with the other 21 people who died that night and the reality bender in a terrible place, as she called it. She told me it taunted her and the others day and night. James was full on crying now. Claire, you and I remember because it was our parents who were sacrificed that night, and everyone close to it remembers the before and after of the changes. I was frozen in my seat. I didn't know how to react. I mean, it's crazy, right? All this time my mother told me that my father died in a fire, but I never would have guessed that it happened like that. She's gone now. It took her away. She died when I was 5 again, but I remember everything, he finished. Obviously, I was in shock after that. I was angry at Dr. Blackwell, at James. That thing took my father and was apparently taunting him constantly. I was mad at the world. I still am. I left the institution after that and went straight to my apartment. I've been here the last 4 days. I've decided to drink my problems away. Things around me are changing more frequently now. I have 57 missed calls from James. There's no way in hell I'm killing 23 people. So I write this as a warning to tell your loved ones that you love them before everything and everyone you love is taken away from you without you noticing, and you're used as a pawn, tortured for eternity. And the worst part, you won't even notice when it happens. I am obsessed with that story, and I hope that you add on to it. I really hope that you add on to it because I feel like you could make this like into a multiple part story. I know it's already 2 parts, but I feel like you could make it like 10 parts or something like that. Like it could be like incredible. Now I'm gonna move you back. I am genuinely blown away by the talent that you guys have. Like whether it's just you sending me a story, like a real life story that happened to you, or creating something like this. I mean, it's just like amazing that you guys send me these stories, and I'm so thankful for it. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you are the author to this story, let me check actually what your username is. Dancing Fish Stick. Dancing Fish Tick. If you decide to add on to this story, please let me know so I can continue it because I would love to read the other parts. But if this is the end of it, then I'm satisfied. I can't even lie. But I feel like you could totally add on to it and add more and go into like more detail about Dr. Blackwell and the reality bender and stuff like that. But that's completely up to you as the author. That is all I have for today. If you guys have any stories that you would like to share with me, I will have the subreddit link down below as well as my email. If you have any no sleep stories that you guys want me to check out, please send those to me as well. But other than that, I'm gonna go. I love y'all. I will see you in the next one. Bye. I got the world's largest zit on my face right now. And she is painful. Oh, she is painful. And I don't know how to get rid of it. Oh, but it hurts. I popped it this morning, but she's just getting bigger, I feel like. But that's okay. We all have zits. Zits are part of life, and maybe they make us beautiful. Because you're beautiful. Okay, I'm gonna go see ya.